$50 million. That's what Kraft Heinz just committed to their Montreal factory. Not a new plant somewhere else, not a relocation, an expansion right here in Canada. And they're not alone. Coca-Cola, 141 million in Ontario. Mars, 131 million across 4 facilities. That's over $500 million from American food giants, all flowing into Canadian manufacturing, all in the last few months. Now, here's the part that should make you smile: the founder of Kraft, James Lewis Kraft. He wasn't American. He was born on a dairy farm in Stevensville, Ontario in 1874. The company is coming home. But there's a number buried in the consumer data that explains exactly why this is happening now. I'll show you what it is. If you want to understand these economic shifts before they hit the news cycle, subscribe and hit the bell. I track every major investment Carney's Canada attracts. Let me take you back to where this shift started. Early 2025, Trump announces tariffs on Canadian goods, steel, aluminum, auto parts. The message was clear: America first. Buy American. Punish anyone who doesn't comply. And for a moment, it looked like it might work. Canadian exporters were worried, supply chains were scrambling, the dollar dipped. Headlines predicted disaster. But then something happened that nobody in Washington expected. Canadians started reading labels, not because the government told them to, although Trudeau and the premiers did urge people to choose Canada, but because they wanted to. 60% of Canadians in a Dalhousie University survey said they were willing to pay 5 to 10% more for Canadian products over American alternatives. 60%. That's not a political statement. That's a market shift. And by September 2025, the data was undeniable. Nielsen retail numbers showed sales of made in Canada food products up more than 10% year over year. American-made products down nearly 9%. 7 straight months of decline. Think about that for a second. Trump's tariffs were supposed to hurt Canada. Instead, they created the biggest Buy Canadian wave in a generation. And American companies, the same ones whose government was trying to squeeze us, started doing the math. If Canadian consumers are buying Canadian and Canadian workers can build the products and the Canadian government is offering partnership, why wouldn't you invest here? That's exactly what Kraft Heinz figured out. But what they announced last week, that's just the beginning of the story. March 16th, 2026. After months of negotiations between Kraft Heinz executives and the Canadian federal government, the deal is finalized. $250 million, the largest modernization effort in the Montreal plant's 70-year history. Now let me show you what that money actually does. The Montreal facility currently employs over 1,000 Canadians running 41 manufacturing lines. They produce 500 million pounds of product every year. More than half of everything Kraft Heinz sells in Canada, your Kraft dinner, your Philadelphia cream cheese, your Kraft peanut butter, your Heinz ketchup, comes out of that one building. The investment upgrades aging equipment with high-speed AI-driven production systems. It increases capacity. It brings new product lines into Canada that were previously made elsewhere. And here's the phrase Kraft Heinz used in their announcement: repatriating production. Repatriating, bringing it home. Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne put it bluntly: when a global leader like Kraft Heinz chooses Canada, they're not only doubling down on their footprint today, they're cementing their long-term future in our country. But it's not just Kraft Heinz. Let me show you the pattern. February 2026. Coca-Cola Canada. Bottling announces $141 million to expand their Brampton facility. A new manufacturing line, one of the most technologically advanced in the country. Millions more beverages produced domestically. Before that, Mars invested $131 million across 4 Ontario facilities. You see what's happening? American food giants aren't pulling back from Canada. They're digging in, they're building, they're hiring. And here's the detail that most coverage completely misses. The man who started all of this, James Lewis Kraft, was Canadian. Born December 11th, 1874, on a dairy farm near Stevensville, Ontario. He worked at Ferguson's General Store in Fort Erie before moving to Chicago with $65 in his pocket. Built one of the largest food companies on the continent. His birthplace is now a designated Canadian historic place. So when Kraft Heinz invests $250 million in Montreal, they're not just expanding, they're returning to where it all began. So let me show you why this doesn't reverse. First, infrastructure. You don't spend $250 million on AI driven production systems and then abandon them. That equipment has a lifespan measured in decades. Once it's installed, once the engineers are trained, once the supply chains are configured around it, you don't move. Second, the consumer shift. This isn't a temporary boycott that fades when headlines change. Nielsen data shows 7 consecutive months of Canadian products gaining and American products losing. In consumer economics, that's not a mood swing, that's habit formation. Canadians are building new shopping patterns. Those patterns stick. Third, the supply chain logic. Kraft Heinz sources ingredients from the Canadian producers. The more they manufacture here, the deeper those relationships become. Suppliers scale up to meet demand, contracts extend, switching costs rise. Every year the facility operates, the roots grow deeper. Fourth, and this is the part that matters for your grocery bill, localized production means reduced exposure to tariffs, currency swings, and cross border shipping delays. When the next trade dispute hits, and there will be another one, companies with Canadian manufacturing don't scramble. They're already here. Dr. Sylvain Charlebois at Dalhousie University put it this way: everything has fallen into place for Kraft Heinz in Canada. They turned around declining market share. They tapped into the patriotism wave, and now they've locked in their position with a $250 million commitment. That's not a press release. That's a strategic bet on Canada's future. And if you multiply this across Coca-Cola, Mars, and the others following the same playbook, what you're looking at is a structural shift in where North American food gets made. Not because of government mandates, because the economics work. Because Canadian consumers showed they're willing to vote with their wallets, because Canadian workers can deliver. If this makes sense of what you're seeing in the grocery aisles, hit that like button. It pushes this to more Canadians who should understand what's actually happening. Now, is this the end of the story? Not even close. The Buy Canadian movement is still building, more companies are doing the math, more consumers are checking labels, and the government has made clear, through Champagne's statement and through the partnership support they provided Kraft Heinz, that Ottawa is ready to work with companies willing to invest here. What I'm watching is whether this extends beyond food, defense, technology, energy, the playbook Kraft Heinz just ran. Bring production home, tap into consumer patriotism, partner with government, lock in long-term infrastructure that works in any sector. My question for you: which American company do you think moves next? Auto parts, pharmaceuticals, tech, hardware? I want your predictions in the comments. I'm reading every one. Here's what I know. They said tariffs would force Canada to bend. Instead, tariffs created a patriotic wave that's now pulling investment north. A company founded by a Canadian kid from Stevensville just committed $250 million to Montreal. Coca-Cola is building in Brampton. Mars is expanding across Ontario. Trump wanted America first. He got Canada rising. $250 million. 1,000 jobs secured. 41 production lines upgraded. And a founder who was Canadian all along. That's not a headline. That's a homecoming. If you haven't seen the video where I broke down the full Buy Canadian movement and the company's already shifting, that's the context you need for everything I just told you. That video is right here. I'll see you there.